It's been a budget for everyone, but how is also the middle class reacting to the subsidies being given, where the rate on the 5 lakh rupee income has been slashed by 50%. Also, digital push that we've seen, no service charge on e-ticket from railways, and IT sector, which is looking at SOPs from the finance minister on e-payment platforms. Let me go across to India's Silicon Valley, Bengaluru, where my colleague Rohini Swami is joining us. So, Rohini, what's your take on the budget? What's the city talking about? What are the key takeaways?
Hello and welcome to this special show that we are having for the budget live from Bengaluru, the IT hub of the country, and we call this show ModiNomics. We will be bringing you with some esteemed panelists here a complete lowdown on Arun Jaitley's budget this year. So, thank you so much for joining us. Let me introduce my guests first. We are also joined by Mr. Ganesh Murthy from Dell, you're the CFO. We are joined by the chairman of CIA Karnataka, Mr. Ravi Raghavan. We are also joined by the MD of ABV, Mr. Sanjay Sharma. And I'm also joined by Kamal Bali, sir, and you are the Vice Chairman of Karnataka CII, as well as you are the MD of Volvo. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question, Sanjay sir, how has the budget been? A good budget?
Well, in my view, very good budget, and what I see is a very confident finance minister, really looking to use number of instruments he has in his hand, which he can play out to really bring the animated spirit in the Indian economy, which all of us deserve.
Mr. Ravi, 3 takeaways from the budget.
I think it was, I'd term it a very mature budget and a very non-political, balanced budget. He tried to balance the rural and the urban. He tried to balance the low income to the high income, and fiscal prudence to the investment and growth. So I think it's a very balanced and a mature budget for me.
Mr. Ganesh, happy with it?
Yes, I think I'm very happy with it. It's been I would go even further. I would label it as a very courageous budget. I think the single most thing that impressed me was the fact that he has reduced the cash donations to political parties from 20,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees. I mean, it just indicates the seriousness with which the government is tackling this black money economy and the black money issue. And he has also done a number of other measures, like this new law that is going to be introduced to take over the assets of all absconders. I think, again, very courageous. He's also expanded the tax base, increased the tax base by just giving them a very nominal 5% increase up to 5 lakh rupees of taxable income, just a 5% tax rate. I think these are all very courageous steps.
Basically trying to say that they are quite serious about black money and how they deal with taxation, especially this time. Mr. Kamal, happy with it, or do you feel that it could have been a little more bolder or a little more different, or like he was saying, courageous?
No, I completely echo what gentlemen have said here, and I think it's, to my mind, it's one of the finest budgets in the last 1 decade, so to say. I think he's tried to tackle 3 or 4 very major imperatives which India was facing. One was to spur growth. We were feeling that the growth is slowing down. There was a bit of a negative sentiment building up after demonetization. So I think he's tried to put at rest all of that. So he spurred growth by touching, and more importantly, by touching the vulnerable sections of the society. So he's focused on rural economy, he's focused on agriculture, he's focused also on infrastructure. So I think this is something very, very positive. The second thing which is very important is he has led a methodology to create more jobs. I think this is again a very, it's a burning issue not only in India, across the world, and I think he's tried to address that also by getting the MSMEs become more profitable, and they have more disposable income in their hands by which they can reinvest, create more jobs. So it can actually kickstart a virtuous cycle of growth. More money, more investment, so therefore you create more consumption. More consumption means more jobs. I think this is something very, very good. Last but not the least, he has not compromised on the fiscal prudence. He has not gone beyond 3.2 percentage points on fiscal deficit number. So overall, I am very happy. In addition to what he talked about, the political funding, it's a very, very major reform, very, very bold reform.
But very interestingly, he also talked about a tectonic shift being the GST or demonetization, which that was something that we are looking forward to in this particular budget. So you think that the demonetization that has taken place, has it had its effect in your sectors? I'd like to take the question one by one. So Mr. Sanjay, how has that affected the sector?
Well, as far as our business where I'm exposed, we are more in business to business, B2B.
Yes.
So we haven't seen the any real impact or demonetization in the segments we are exposed to.
And how do you look at it with the fact that demonetization has had its...
Yes, in the beginning there was some initial, I would say, hesitation on understanding what it is, but the overall enthusiasm that people had was tremendous. I think it's normalized. There is no major impact other than the first 10 days, 15 days when everybody is trying to find out a way of handling the banks because everybody was busy doing their work. Otherwise, the business has not got affected because of demonetization. But after the end of all that, January, we see a lot of positivity amongst people that it was a bold step taken. So it's overall, I think it was needed and very timely done and absolutely an essential for this country.
And interestingly, he said that there's no spillover for the next year.
Yes.
So the surgical strike very clearly means that it was only for 1 year and they're going to take care of the markets, especially when the remonetization program will start off at kickoff. Is
It's
it?
been capped in the same year, yeah.
That's right.
And you made an interesting point about the political parties, especially the cap that he's brought about 2000. Do you think that that will also bring about more trust amongst the people?
Yes,
Looking
I
at the
think
fact
it's
that we have elections also coming up, so
Right.
a kind of a move at that time?
Yes, I think it's a very bold move and really looks at that is very deadly serious to do this, you know, for a political party themselves to introduce this. And we all know that there is a lot of black money funding in elections, and this will actually curb that.
So what do you think of the incentives to the manufacturing sector? Was that good enough?
Well, I think incentive, MSME is a backbone of any economy, and because that's where most of the jobs can be created. So I think if you revitalize and re-energize the MSME sector and give them a hope that they can invest, and they can invest in quality, they can invest in technology, and feed the large corporations which are global in nature, they not only become part of the domestic supply chain, but they can also become part of the global supply chain. So I think that's a very wise move to re-energize the MSME sector and give them incentives. And I think now MSMEs, if they participate in this area, I think there are very large and very good, well-established companies in the country which will support that process.
Mr. Ganesh, interestingly also they talked about hiking allocation for women in skill development. How do you look at that move that has been?
I think it's all a question of having gender diversity, promoting gender diversity and including women into the workforce. So I think it's a good move.
And Mr. Kamal, the app, digitization of economy, BEAM app, and that is something that has been talked about largely, cashless transactions. Do you see any effect of that after this budget?
No, absolutely. I think there's a complete method in what they're doing, starting with demonetization. I mean, if I take a step back and just to make a short comment on demonetization, I think the whole thing has been overplayed. Demonetization did have some temporary transient pains, but I think the demand per se in most segments of economy has not been extinguished. It has been only postponed. So I think the demonetization was not as big an animal as we have all made it out to be. Of course, we all went through a lot of pain, but I think that was good enough. So likewise, he is now going through the political parties' reforms, I think, which is electoral reforms, which is very critical, followed by GST, which means that you are moving on to more and more transparent, organized, and a digital platform which will track every transaction which you incur. Right. So therefore, the chances of fooling, chances of unethical and wrong practices will be minimized, which is good for the country, good for economy in the longer run.
But yes.
Sorry, if I can add, I think this only proves a point that demonetization was a good move because it was not taken as an isolation. there's a follow-through in the budget as well. The sources of things going wrong as black money can be controlled through GST. Then he has brought in more people into the tax net. These are things which were followed. If these follow-ups were not happening in the budget, probably one would have doubted the intent of the government. But with this budget, they made the intents absolutely clear that they want clean India. And that slogan fits in very, very well with this budget, because all the moves they've done in this budget are absolutely clear in that direction.
That's why you're saying transform, change, and clean India.
Interesting. Clean India, skill India, make in India.
Energize India.
Energize India.
Well, I think I fully agree with Ravi and Kamal said. See, any corporation or any institutions, more transparency you bring in, more governance you bring in, it's a proven record that those institutions and those kind of entities, they grow and prosper over a period of time. So I think there are a number of elements that you can see, whether you talk about the political party funding, you talk about having done the demonetization, the government has a lot of data available in terms of where the income and where the money is sitting. And as Finance Minister said, they are deploying some good methods to do the data mining. And I think as you go forward, they will detect a lot of sources of revenues which were not reported before.
Absolutely.
And more revenues get reported that also contributed to the clean GDP. So even if we talk about numbers of GDP right now, but if much of the revenues don't get reported, you don't see the reflection of the true GDP.
At least 2 percentage points. That's the guesstimate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we are bringing you a complete lowdown on Arun Jaitley's budget, and in this special show of ModiNomics, we're also bringing you certain details which affect the industry here in Bengaluru. And sir, the questions now I like to put forward to you is also about the abolishment of the Foreign Investment Promotion Board. Mr. Kamal, how do you look at this?
No, I think it's a move in the right direction. I think it's going more towards minimum government, maximum governance. I think this is something very good. Reducing red tape, ease of doing business. I think it's all part of that basic thinking, and I think we all welcome this move, and I think the industry will respond very well in those.
Mr. Ganesh, does it affect your sector too?
It doesn't affect our sector because we are in IT services, so we're already not covered by FIPB. So we have foreign direct investments in our sector. But I think it's a good move because it reduces bureaucracy, reduces the number of approvals you take, and each time you go to the government for approvals, there is corruption involved, and there is a time involved. So this reduces all that, and it does away with all this
red tape reduction.
Red tapeism. But he's talked about how a new policy for FDI will also be formulated.
Hopefully, I think it will be much, wider investment. And so we can expect greater investment into India.
The markets also have been responding quite positively.
Absolutely.
So FIPB is also one of them that possibly could have made that
Absolutely,
agree.
that could have been one of the reasons for the market reacting this way. And it was correct at that point when FIPB was introduced to control. And I think it's outlived its life, and probably a great move. As Mr. Moti said, very courageous move. This is one of the, again, very courageous move by the government.
But do you feel, sir, Mr. Sharma, that maybe possibly the timing of this is also looked at maybe at one level that when we're talking about Make in India, Skill India, something that needs to be changed, and that's why they decided to have a complete revamp and have a new policy for FDI and do away with this?
Well, absolutely. I think this government and many departments of this government are really working hard to really create a Make in India, and also ease of doing business as their major plank. So you have institutions like Niti Aayog and others. They are all looking into the areas which make things easier for the investor, and also the things which make it more difficult, and the laws which have outlived themselves, and the institutions which have outlived themselves. So I think it's very positive that this government is very bold to take initiatives to do away with things which don't make any sense anymore.
Well, one thing that has excited the industry is lowering the corporate tax, and that has brought a smile to everybody's face the moment he announced that, isn't that?
Yeah.
So how do we look at it? Does it help?
Absolutely. Can I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah. I think absolutely. This means more disposable income in the hands of MSMEs, because this has been done predominantly for MSMEs up to a turnover of about 50 crores. So which means which touches about almost more than 90% of the industry in India. This means that they can get into the next phase of investments. Investments means more jobs,
Yes.
which means, so it kickstarts a virtuous cycle of growth. And that is what the whole story of the consumption, the private level consumption and growth was all about. So I think this will kickstart a virtuous cycle of growth. And to my mind, it's a very, very positive move. Tremendous increase in outlays in the rural economy and,
Yes.
and the farming agriculture economy. I think so this is actually going to be a real positive move when it comes to really looking at economic growth really taking a couple of points more.
And a lot of stress was laid on that initially when he was announcing the budget,
Absolutely.
especially in the agri economy this
Absolutely.
time. But do you think that the cess of 10%, 15% on incomes of 50 lakh and 1 crore, are they trying to build up an image saying that we are not a government of the rich?
I don't know if they're building the image, but maybe yes. But I think it doesn't. I don't think it's going to affect much people, and people are not going to take it in a negative way. He's just trying to balance and be tax neutral. So somewhere he has to take somewhere and give
It's
somewhere.
redistribution of
redistribution.
I don't think so that there is any effort on the government to project themselves as pro-poor and anti-rich. Because if he had done that, he would have actually increased the surcharge or increased the tax rates for above 1 crore. He has left it the same.
There.
Okay, so that from that perspective, I think he is not projecting an anti-rich image.
But is this some kind of band-aid compared to after what demonetization happened? Maybe a kind of a way of trying to work it out in
Well,
his,
I think
in his
I see
favor?
it. I see it from the finance minister's point of view that as he goes through different phases, one is the demonetization, then you have the tax base expansion. You're making more and more people participate in the tax bracket, and they will bring more people into the tax bracket after they know more about the money which has come into the bank. GST is around the corner. So I think as the revenue visibility becomes stronger and stronger going forward, I think you will see more and more bolder kind of steps taken by this government. And I think this is a one step in good direction, because the finance minister already has announced he wanted to bring the tax rate to 25% for the corporates, which he has started with the MSMEs. And I would like to assume that as the revenue base and as well as the tax base, direct and indirect tax base becomes more visible, I think they will continue to do it for all the sectors of the economy going forward.
So maybe I could ask you 3 positives and 3 negatives of this budget.
Well, positive, as I said, you see a very confident finance minister having a number of instruments in his hand to be able to play the economy in the right direction. Number 2, I believe starting with the lowest income strata to contribute to the economy and encouraging them to become the natural taxpayers, and also making the MSMEs to participate in it. I think it creates a good energy in the system, and also making a bold statement that the political parties will also participate by creating a good transparent system, so that the one part of the society doesn't feel that the other part of the society or the political side doesn't have the right governance system. So I think if we have a equity based society, I think that's good for all. So that would be my takeaway.
So definitely it looks to be a complete feel-good budget that Mr. Jaitley has brought about, but implementation at the end of the day is what everybody needs to see, and whether they'll be able to implement it well, that is for the government to do. And now, as they talk about Skill India and Make in India, they will have to make that difference for everybody to know. On this note, thank you so much for watching us. We hope you enjoyed watching this show, and this coming live from Bengaluru, this show on ModiNomics is all about how Mr. Arun Jaitley presented the budget.